Hello folks. Forgot to turn on my mic. Plug in my mic. Schoolboy error. How you all doing? Hello self-diving. And Matt. How do Rob? Yes, Gaetan, it is really 5 AM for me. I'm in Sydney, Australia, so. Splurging away. So. Going to put that in. I will get to your comments and questions in a second, so don't worry about that. And why don't you type in the chat what your biggest insight, what your biggest insight, aha, or wow was so far in doing the Splurge Challenge, if that's the Idea Explosion Challenge, if that's what you're doing. Type in the chat what that was first, and then I'll play this part and then read some of them out, and we can have a conversation. Wait a minute. Say right. Yeah, that's more like it. I thought more like okay. Hang on a minute. Remember to save the template when you notice a mistake. Right, there we go. Brilliant. Right. Let's play this thing in. Yeah, so what were the insights? What were the things that you realized through splurging? Have a think about that. Post in the comments in the chat, and I will play this in. strange number. Is that a strange number of bars? I had an extra bar in there somewhere. Anyway, I'll leave it like that for now. Okay, I've played that in. What did I do there? Go away. There we go. All right, let's come to some of the experiences that people have been having, and let's have a conversation. So, Rob, I was doing my 10th splurge today. Best one up till now. Okay, so first of all, Rob, I know it's a natural human reaction, so I'm not saying don't be human, but I just want you to be mindful of the fact, and it is a fact, that you don't know whether it was your blessed till now. This is one of the things you're going to find out when you get to the listening session. Okay, so let's not overjudge when we're actually doing it. This is one of the fundamental kind of realizations I had, was that we don't know how good it is when we're making it. We just don't. How many times have you been making something and gone, oh, it's amazing, and then you come back the next day and you're like, what was I thinking? It's terrible, and vice versa, and the other way around. So if you're saying, however, it was the best in that it was the best when I splurged the best, i.e. I was the most splurgy, it was the least focused on, I was the least focused on quality, and it just kind of came out, then that's different. But if you're talking about actually the quality of the music, be a little less judgy than that. I wanted to add a piano, but your rules stopped me from adding. Sorry about that. I saved it as usual, but felt the need to go on and add more tracks. Just a bit more clarity would be nice. I'm sticking to your rules. Good. I mean, you can go on if you want, but what you will find at some point is you hit kind of a wall. And I mean, I do find that when you come back to something, it's better to finish like the session when you're excited about it than when you're like, ugh, yeah. Why might that be? Because then it's easier to come back to and you're kind of fresh with it. You're excited about it. Self-diving. Wanted to thank you and just share that I'm amazed by how this simple guided method of changing the pattern of the creative process opens a constant flow of quite solid and almost structured compositions. Yes. I do think that our thinking mind, contrary to what we kind of naturally think in terms of the way that we're taught, literally think, the thinking mind does get in the way often of us doing what we can already do. Because the thinking mind doesn't really determine what we do, it just notices what we're doing. It's not very good at doing, it's good at thinking. So yeah. Hello, Doug. Matt says, on your stream yesterday, you inspired me to get a MIDI keyboard again. I don't play, but I miss the ability to record parts live. Absolutely. Yes, so self-diving says, and much faster in an organised way, not leaving them in a loop state, which you stop liking, but actually exporting something out of it in 10 to 15 minutes. Absolutely. Douglas has been doing lots of splurging today and says, throwing the arrangement round, simply using visuals is great. Thanks for that. Also, I'm not second-guessing things. I just do. Awesome. There's going to be plenty of time for second-guessing, but in the appropriate place to, well, not necessarily second-guess, but actually guess or, make some judgments about it. But the place for that is not when you're creating. The place for that is when after you've listened. Yeah, and you're not allowed to do that until day 11. So, self-diving made 9 in a day. I was quite surprised about the content as well. Sounds so not like me, old me, but something with my taste, but more fresh or original, facing very interesting ideas. Yes, once again, I think what you're experiencing is what happens when you get the thinking mind out of the way in the idea generation phase. Just to be clear, we do use the thinking mind in the creative process, but we just don't do it we attempt not to anyway, do it when we're actually doing it. We use I think the other word for the thinking mind is the editor. So we edit when it's appropriate to edit, which is actually weirdly out of the studio. We separate the creator from the editor. ADD TP says, I've had a few splurges today in between homeschooling. I would like Trello to automatically add a card when I'm done. Yeah, so ADTP, you can do that using, if you export the thing to Dropbox and then connect it with a service called Zapier, then you can do that. However, I would recommend, I mean, how long does it take you to add the card into Trello? What, like 5 seconds? So maybe that might not be at this stage worth your time. Let's think effective at first, not efficient. All right? So you've already got more than 80% of the way there by using this system. Don't worry about that for now. Yeah, it sounds like you might be like, why you want this? Yeah, it's like just, I want to do this particular thing. And then, that opens a whole, can of worms, which then ends up taking you longer. I mean, I do have it set up so it automatically adds a card into Trello, but that was only after I was using it for months and months and months. Yeah, so let's focus on the bit that really counts. You're homeschooling your children, which means you have limited time. I'm also homeschooling my children. I'm doing it out of choice, though, not because of the pandemic. We started homeschooling our children, and funnily enough, it was the term. So the term started, and then we had like 6 or 7 weeks, and then everyone else started homeschooling their children. But anyway, so you have limited time. So let's just focus on the 80%, the actions that will get you most of the result first. Douglas, and I'm having fun. Some of the music is making me laugh. Yes, no, that does happen a lot. It's a really, really good skill or ability to have when you're making music, is to laugh at yourself, to be able to laugh at yourself and go, oh my God, that was terrible. Rather than, oh no, that was terrible. I'm a terrible person. I can't do anything. I might as well just give up. That's not a good place to create stuff. Whereas going, my goodness me, that one's awful, is a much better place to come from. Gaetan. Less overthinking helps significantly with my melody creation. Fantastic. Also experimenting with a lot more different genres, because if you're splurging, why not? Exactly. This is the other thing that a focus on creating an enormous quantity of ideas does. It gives you the freedom to just throw open the doors and try stuff that you maybe hadn't thought about. Or maybe you had thought about. So you had an idea, I feel like making this, or I feel like making that at some point, but you never have time to, because you're spending so much time just working on the thing that you're doing. Whereas if you're splurging and there's no problem, I mean, you know that you're not actually going to take forward the majority of the music that you make, and you're making many more ideas, then it naturally means that you just try lots of different things. One, because you get bored of the same thing over and over again, increasing the progress, and in a sense, increasing the quality. In that one way, but also it gives you time. It gives you the time, because you can make the time in air quotes, because you make many more ideas in the same time. Yeah, so you can try different stuff and start. It's like the way that you build an original in air quotes style, your own style. It's a melting pot. You can't think your way into it. You've got to create your way to it. So by taking lots of different, trying lots of different things and throwing them into the melting pot, out of that comes your own style. So it's also how you can start to really zero in on your unique thing, which you won't know what it is yet until you kind of start creating it. Gaetan, also, I act a lot quicker to start a quick session if an idea pops into your head. Yes, exactly. Because it's so much easier. You've lowered the bar. Yeah, so you can just go, oh, I know, I'll just do this. And then it's done. 10 minutes. Have I got 10 minutes? Yeah, I've got 10 minutes. Right. Yeah, we put these barriers up, don't we? We put these big bars up to making music. My whole thing, there was I say this quite a lot, there's a very famous and great music production kind of guru, teacher, coach. And I heard that he had said, if you haven't got 4 hours at least, a 4-hour block at least to make music, forget about it. And I was like, it's literally the worst. If that was true, then I wouldn't make a single note of music in my current life. I very rarely have 4 hours. I mean, it basically never have 4 uninterrupted hours to make music. Yeah. So how much time do I need to do a session? 5 minutes, 10 minutes. That's all I need. Splurging, definitely. Even later on sessions. Because of the automatic music machine, I know what I need to do, and sometimes I can just do one thing on that list. And I know that's not optimal. I would rather have a session of at least half an hour. But what else am I going to do? If I don't have that, I'm going to go, oh, that means I can't make music. No. I refuse. I refuse that. I'm saying no to that. I'm just going to find a way to make music in my current life. I'm going to discover a way. Okay. Hello, Manuel. Doug, I nearly bought a new ARP for Ableton, but I didn't, thanks to you. Brilliant. Yes, you've got more than enough, Douglas. So you've got more than enough stuff to use. So just focus on that, please. Good. So Rob's saying the 10th splurge felt the best emotional and flowed better. Yes, Manuel, I want to buy a 3 to 4 octave synth after seeing Mike making music. I only need more space at the studio. Yes, I apologise. Like, it is difficult not to get gas at the gear acquisition syndrome when you're watching somebody else who has things that you like. I get that. That's not the intention of this, though. Please focus on what you have first. I'm not anti-gear, obviously, but I am anti-getting gear for any reason other than a specific reason. Yeah, I kind of have. I mean, when I came back to making music for after an 8-year break, I did. I mean, there was a period of time when I was seeing what you could do. That was mainly actually in the door. It was a lot of software, seeing what you could do. So I got more than I would have done under normal circumstances. But you'll notice that since then, apart from my Apollo X6, which was really more about the live streaming than anything else. Apart from that, because before that I had an Apollo Twin, and it only has 2 holes, whereas that's got more. So it allows me to speak, and so apart from that, I haven't really added to this for a while. So. So Ewe says, "Hey Mike, I'm interested in a program like The Leap. Is there a way to check that out? I can't really find info on that." Yeah, I think makemusicyourlife.com/the-leap. I think that's the page. At the moment, there isn't. It's not open because we have classes that run. I actually take people through it personally. So me and the 2 Make Music Your Life coaches that we have. So the next one is starting at the end of July. But makemusicyourlife.com/the-leap. I think. I'm pretty sure that's the URL. Maybe I'll actually try and find out. I'll tell you what, I'll find out for you. Send me an email, mike@makemusicyourlife.com, and I'll send you the details. Manuel, I have a little micro boot with 2 octaves. Enough now, but if I want to improve my skills, I need more keys. Yeah, I mean, I made music for 17 years on a tiny little keyboard, and I realised after leaving music for 8 years, I got a very specific it's like the benefit of hindsight and distance, and not being kind of so invested in what I had done. Yeah, because that was the kind of time away from it. Meant that I noticed certain things about what I had missed or would have done differently. And one of them was that I can play the piano, not brilliantly, but fairly well. Especially, certainly compared to a lot of electronic music producers, a lot, and which is fine. I'm not saying I'm better than them, but for this, but just in terms of being able to play the piano, I did up to grade 8, and I started learning for my diploma and stuff. So I'm okay, and so that was something that kind of separated me from a lot of people. And I, for the most part, I just used a tiny little keyboard. So I actually made most of my music using that. And I thought, well, why did I do that? Why didn't I actually get a decent weighted, full-size MIDI thing so I can play it in? Because then that would be actually playing to my strengths. So, so Matt's saying, my rule to keep gas at bay, as you said, Mike, work with what I have first. If I really want a new piece, I have to let go of another. Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, what I'm doing is I say to myself something like this. Here's a rule. I am only allowed to get a new thing, because now I've noticed that those bastards at Moog, not bastards at all, wonderful people at Moog, they've got a new thing in this line of these semi-modular things. What's it called? The Harmonicon or something. Anyway, and the things that they've got on there. See, I like with the mother. So far, haven't resonated with it quite as much as I did with the DFAM. But this new thing seems to be. I know it's not like a DFAM, but it seems to be more DFAM-y. And I'm like, oh, I want one. Right. So I'll have 3, and eventually, like, I'll have 10. No, wait. And so, and I saw it yesterday, and I was like, oh, I saw it yesterday, and I was like, oh, I really want one of those. But I've got a rule for myself that I'm not going to get one until I have finished at least an album's worth of material with what I have. That's my rule. Yeah. So subharmonicon, there you go. But making simple rules for yourself in general, and deciding like beforehand, it's almost like a principle. Yeah. There's actually a book called Principles by Ray Dalio, who's a kind of very successful investor. And he was talking about making sort of principle, like rules for yourself, which you live by, because you just make the decision once, and then that kind of directs you for the rest of your life. It's a really good way of doing things, rather than constantly having to stop yourself from doing something. So, for instance, instead of saying, I'm only going to drink alcohol in certain situations, you just say, I'm not going to drink alcohol for the next however many months, because you made one decision and then you don't need to think about it again. Yeah. So I stopped drinking alcohol at start of January, and I haven't drunk since, and it's just easy. So I've just made the decision. Yeah, so it's kind of a principle. You can do the same with gas. You can do the same with anything that you kind of struggle with on a daily basis, because you're constantly having to make that decision and stop yourself. Yeah, so just a simple rule: I'm not going to buy anything until this, or I'm not going to buy anything unless I. Those kinds of rules can really help. Yeah. Gaetan. My only concern I have when splurges is I barely have sections in a splurge. Most of the time I have a chorus and then times pre-chorus and a verse. Okay, so in terms of that concern, Gaetan, what are you concerned about? What would the problem be there? That you barely have sections in a splurge. Why might that be a problem? Yep. Because you've written what your concern is, but to me, from my perspective, that doesn't seem to be something to be concerned about. So could you just post in the chat and let me know, what is it that you're worried about to do with that? Anyway, while you're answering that question, I'm going to put another part in. And also, for anyone else, can you type in the chat what your biggest challenge, problem, difficulty has been so far with splurging, or biggest question? Right, let's go with the DFAM first. And I know I was making, as part of the homeschooling. I'm going to go to SynthCam. We're going to go to VinceCam. There we go. As part of my homeschooling, I was making a tune with my 4 tiny little boys. So the youngest is 2 and the oldest is 10. And I was teaching them about synthesizers, and basically was getting the 10-year-old to make a beat using just the DFAM. And I was explaining about how you make hi-hats and snares, because he knows about that kind of thing. And we ended up on a hi-hat, so that's what it was. So now I'm going to change it back. So. Whoop. Let's turn off this click. So you can hear us, because we had it like this. That's what we had it like before. got to get the... Sorry, I've got children playing with knobs on the multi-clock, and I've just noticed they got it out of sync. So I've just got to check it with the what's it called? Metronome. Make sure it's in. Hang on a minute. Okay, let's go back to Vince Cam. So this thing here, this is a multi-clock, and it's what basically I use to sync the DFAM with the DAW. So the DAW sends a robot voice, which goes like this, yeah, to this, and according to in robot language, what that means is this is going at 112 beats per minute. Okay, like that. It's weird though, because when you ask it to go at 50 beats per minute, it's like this. So I don't understand how it understands that, but anyway. So yeah, and then because the DFAM has zero like MIDI or anything like that, you got to plug it in this, and it sends an audio signal from here. Yep. And the great thing about the multi-clock, because the DFAM on its own can't swing, poor little thing, so it needs a little help to swing its butt, yeah, with this, yeah. So you can turn this shuffle knob and turn up the shuffle, yeah. But the other thing you can do is you can shift with this knob. You can shift it backwards and forwards, so that helps with latency. And the other thing, the other great thing about it is that it's like solid, sync. I am in sync. There's no it's just the most solid thing ever. So anyway, coming back to, so now I need to get it back in sync, because I think it was it was one of my children basically fiddle with that knob. So. And I will come to your comments about how it's going, questions and challenges soon. Oh, that'll do. It's absolutely fine. Latency seems not to be an issue today. Let's go back to Studio Cam and just answer a quick bit of questions. Okay, so Gaetan. Coming back to Gaetan's issue, yeah, that when I reopen it to work in it, I get stuck in the other sections anyway and end up not finishing. So would that not happen if you did it the first time? I mean, if there's no difference between if you leave it, if there's no difference between if you do it in the splurge or if you do it afterwards, then there's nothing to be concerned about in relation to the splurging. Yeah. If you're concerned that will happen because you're not doing it in that session, then this is one of those, it's like it is out there, and it's like a meme which is you must strike while the iron is hot with an idea. And if you don't, it's gone forever. I believed that, sincerely believed that. I'm just going to get some water. I sincerely believed that for years, because of the way that I made music, which was that I would start an idea and I would make sure that I pretty much finished it before I started another one. And I felt that if I didn't finish every idea first before I started another one, I would start to build up bad habits. In fact, my very first, that's how I made music for 17 years. And my very first program was called Start Now, Finish Fast. And its thing was doing that, because to be honest with you, that was my experience, and it worked. It definitely worked to make music. What I have learned since from coaching thousands and thousands of people, a lot of them directly, all different kinds of, all different levels of skill, success, and experiences, that there is a better way where you can actually work on multiple pieces of music at the same time. Not procrastinate. In fact, you can make a lot more music, makes it a lot easier. And what I realized through this, that whole belief, I mean, there are books written about this, that like massively expert, people who are way, way more successful creatively than me, novelists and playwrights, who've got this belief that you must act upon the idea then, and if you don't, it's gone. It is not true. It is absolutely untrue. It's just that the assumption hasn't been tested. Okay, so if the belief is that I must act on this idea now, otherwise it's gone, if that is what it is, I mean, all I can say, because I'm asking you to believe me, but all I can say is test it, because I can guarantee. I mean, now I've spoken to too many people who use this the way that the approach. I can guarantee that's not the case. Okay, so don't worry. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to carry on doing what I'm doing. I'm going to answer some more questions. I'm going to try and get some music done while I'm also answering these questions and talking to you, rather than just answering questions, which is what I did yesterday. So, always forget to do that. You've got to run the DFAM. Am I on sync? Vince Cam. Come on, Vince Cam. There we go. Why is that so quiet? The DFAM. Folks out there, does the DFAM sound really quiet to you? Oh, that's why. Oh no, it's left and right. Yeah, of course I'm calling it Vince Cam, Tony. It was a great name. I was serious when I wanted you to name my cameras for me. This is so much louder. I'll just do that. What am I doing? Turn up the volume. I'm just going to go with a kick for now. So what I like to do with the DFAM is just do little tiny changes while I'm recording the thing in, and sometimes big changes too, actually. Just because, like, the thing that I really like about it is that it's almost like I want it to simulate, in a way, what you'd get if you had a drummer playing. Actually, what I might do is start it slightly differently. come to your problems and challenges and stuff in a sec, so don't worry about that. I'm not forgetting you. This is how we roll. Okay. Okay, I'll do. See what I'll do is I'll just. All right. Let's come back to some questions. So Douglas, these are challenges with the idea explosion, the splurging. Yeah. Douglas said, I noticed myself start to think, does it all sound the same? Well, you're going to find out, aren't you? And what would be, this is actually a good thing. Okay. I know it doesn't seem like it. So what would be the solution to it all sounding the same? The solution would be to do something different. However, we often make that like judgment, this all sounds the same. I mean, we don't have the ability to make that judgment when we're just making one piece of music because there isn't any other its, right? So by like, what have you gained from, if it say, let's say it does all sound the same, Douglas, yeah? What have you gained from noticing that? You've gained a realization that you tend to do the same things over and over again. Is that a problem? Maybe not. Sometimes it might not be a problem. Sometimes those things that you do over and over again are defining of your sound. I mean, you'll hear me doing a lot of the same things over and over again. My music right now, I mean, I'm kind of going for something. Yeah, I can, but that thing that I'm going for has come out of me making thousands and thousands, well, maybe not thousands and thousands, you know, over 1,000 ideas now in the last couple of years. Yeah. Because I've just noticed there are certain things that I do and I'm like, oh, that, yes. That, and I often do them. I'm like, yes, and I'm going to take that. And then there are other things that I do that kind of bug me. Yeah. And I'm kind of sort of leaving those behind. And then there are other things that I do, but then there are other things that I do that I'm trying to change about what I do. But I only know what those things are clearly by creating the quantity, because it's like showing me what I kind of naturally do. That can only be a good thing if you treat every problem and every challenge as a potential solution, which is what they actually are in reality. Now, life is problems. Like existing in a chaotic universe where anything could happen is essentially a problem-solving exercise. So what sense does it make to think of problems? I'm not saying you are doing this, by the way, Douglas, but what sense does it make to think of problems as being a problem. Yeah. A problem, your problem isn't actually, and I'm not talking to you, Douglas, I'm talking in general, and this is something that one of my mentors says to me all the time. Your problem isn't the problem. Your problem is how you're thinking about the problem. So, yeah, so that's actually good news, because you're getting, I mean, if it is true that they do all sound the same, you're getting information, you're getting data, you're getting, hang on a minute, they all sound the same. How can I change this so that they don't? Maybe just change one thing so that they don't. Okay. And the other thing, the other good reason, the other good news about it sounding the same, by the way, Douglas, is that when you do notice that, you get a lot of motivation to start experimenting, which, as I said previously, is also really, really good news. Okay, so Matt, I had similar hang-ups at first when splurging, not enough sections, or rather a feeling of incompleteness. So we're talking about Gaetan's thing, until I realized I could focus on that later. Exactly. Same as if I like a sound less, or a kick drum I want to compress, for instance. It took a while before I really adopted the splurge as a sketch pad, where I just throw down ideas of development later. Yeah. You don't need to worry about how good a sound is, or whether the kick drum is compressed, or, I mean, the only part where you might need to worry about that, well, not worry, think about that, is if you can't hear, the kind of thing like compressing a kick drum and that kind of thing. It's if you can't hear a sound that you've played in. If you can't hear it, turn it up a bit. At this stage, you just don't need to do any of that nonsense, because think about it, right? If you try and make all of these ideas sound great, and you're not using a majority of these ideas, you're not taking them forward in the future, how much time are you wasting? A lot. All they need to do is sound so that you can hear what's going on. That's it. Okay, Doug, and this is a different Doug from Facebook. Sometimes I get a section that is so great that I become afraid to adjust it or add sections to it. Everything I try to bolt on sounds weak compared to the killer section. Then I'm spooked to move to a different place, preferably with a less intimidating riff. How do I get out of that pattern? So I don't know, Doug, if you're splurging or not, which is a particular methodology. You may well be, you may not be, I don't know. If you're not, then what I would suggest you do, but basically just break it. Don't break the section, but just go into the session thinking, I understand this, right? One of the most difficult situations is having something that you love. I think, apparently, and this is one of those things which is probably not true. It probably wasn't this person that said it, but anyway, apparently Pablo Picasso said there is, there's nothing worse than a brilliant beginning. Yeah. And what I don't know whether he was referring to this, but what I take from that is this thing. You're almost like a deer caught in the headlights. Oh, this is so good, I don't want to ruin it. Yeah. So what I do in that situation is I go in there and I go, right, I'm going to ruin this. I save the thing. Yeah, it's not like in the old days where you couldn't save lots of stuff, or it was really hard to save stuff, or you weren't sure that you had saved everything because you had 5,000 different things to save. You can probably save most of the things, yeah, and record them to audio and all that kind of stuff. So you've got nothing to lose. So save it as something else. Go into the DAW file and say, I'm just going to break this. I'm just going to go nuts. Whoa, yeah, try this, try that. Just go absolutely bonkers. Just have fun. Let it all hang out. Export that thing. Save it. Make another version. Yeah, so save it as something else, version 2. And then try and break it again. Just go nuts. Whoa, destroy it. Just go, whoa. Have that, just throw it out. Just go, literally break everything. Take that approach, that kind of energy. I'm just going to break everything. Save that. Do another one. Do that 5 times. Export every result. Yeah. Move away from the session. Give it 5 days. Then come back and listen to your 5 different versions. Guarantee you, out of all of that stuff that you've done, all of that fun you've had, all of that kind of just wanton creativity, right? There's going to be stuff that's going to move this thing forward. Yeah. If I was to ask you what's the opposite of careful, because what you're describing is being careful. If I was to ask you what's the opposite of careful, what would you say? Anybody in the comments, what would you say? What's the opposite of careful? And please, if you know what I'm going to say, don't give it away. What's the opposite of careful? I'm going to guess that most people watching this will say the opposite of careful is careless. Yeah. I've realised that the opposite of careful doesn't want to be careless. It wants to be carefree. Yeah. Because being too careful is not a creative state to be in. Yeah. It's like, yeah. Yeah, so Rob, I wouldn't say it's mindless. The opposite of careful is not mindless. Yeah. The opposite of careful, I mean, it's not, but is more like mindful. Yeah, or in other words, carefree. Yeah, you can't break anything in a situation where you can change it. I mean, you can break it, but what? So what? If you break it, just go back to what it was before and try it again. This is one of the big problems that a lot of people face. They think they've got to solve the thing immediately in that session, and it's got to be right that time. Otherwise, they're screwed. Nothing could be further from the truth. That's not how it works. Yeah, you just got to let go of that need to be right in every moment, and you'll be just fine. Okay. Ron. Biggest problem for me is having the energy motivation to start up the door and actually do some splurges. After a day of work, I'm drained physically and emotionally. Okay, very simple solution to that. Go to bed half an hour earlier, get up half an hour earlier. Do it at the start of the day. Sealander Soundscapes. Hi, Mike. I'm still having issues in deciding how long I should be splurging for. And I guess this should come from practice. Should. Stop shoulding yourself everywhere. Right. Should. What does should mean? Like, what? Who? Like, was there some kind of? Is there some kind of? I mean, I guess the closest thing to a, splurge trainer is me. Yeah, I'm training you in splurging, and I'm telling you there is no should. How much do you want to do it? Or even better, how long could you do it for? Why do you need to decide anyway? Why not just do it? Yeah, I'm going to do one splurge today. Where does this? Why is there a should here? Yeah, you're shoulding yourself into inaction. Should. I don't know. Just, you could splurge for 8 hours. You could splurge for 5 minutes. Both work. Okay? Just like you put two shoulds in one sentence. This is a very strong indication that you've got some kind of idea that there is a perfect amount of time to be splurging. And if you don't do that, then you will fail. Maybe that kind of resonates with you. Yeah, maybe it's not that strong, but maybe there is some truth to what I've just said. Maybe that's how you're feeling, Sealander. If so, let all of that shit go. Yeah? Just let it go. You could splurge for 5 minutes. Start there. See what happens. Yeah? You don't have to stop after 5 minutes. Let's just start with 5 minutes. And there you go. Decision made. There isn't even a decision to be made. Okay? I am wondering, I don't understand that question. I'm wondering if you started doing this from scratch, but I appear to have been using this since I first saw your Start Now Finish Fast material, RSF. I have absolutely zero idea what on earth that means. So, okay, DFAM's pretty loud for you. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, if you could ask if you could ask the question in under right. Let me say this. Just in general, when you ask a question, if you can't ask it in under 200 characters, then you are not clear enough about the question. Now, what I have found is that I don't know. It might. I mean, this is going to sound a bit weird if you don't know what I'm talking about, but I reckon about 80% of success is about asking good questions. Okay, because if you don't know what the actual question is and you can't articulate it clearly in under 200 characters, I mean, maybe you could be able to do it in even under that, but let's just say 200 characters because that's the amount that whatever it is YouTube give you. Yeah, then that means that you're not asking the right question. Yeah, you're not articulating your question enough. Yeah, for yourself. And when you don't do that, then your mind doesn't deliver the solution. It's not just your mind, but the universe, that your experience. Yeah. So ask me the question in under 200 characters, Sealander. Yeah. That's okay. No, you don't need to be sorry. It's just when I mean, sometimes, right, I will get emails from people and it's literally like a block of text and it's like that. And they say, I have a question for you. And then they will write this thing. And then there is literally zero question in there. There's just a load of stuff. And I literally don't know where to begin. And with situation, and I'm not saying you're like quite like that, Sealander, yeah? But with situations like that, their number one problem is that they haven't formulated a question. They've just, mind splurged just there out, and they're thinking that this is a question. It's just confusion. Yeah. Actually formulating a question that someone can answer is a massive step towards figuring out the solution. Yeah. So, Sealander, formulate a question for me and I will definitely answer it. This is more, and to be honest with you, this is less about me being able to answer the question and actually me helping you. I mean, what I'm doing right now is I'm coaching you to actually figuring out what the question is. Because what do you need to do in order to figure out what the question is? You need to figure out what the problem is, right? Yeah, or you need to have a kind of indication of what the problem is, rather than just this, that, and the other, and brr. Yeah, so. I have not mastered the point where I become editor with splurging and started editing. I started twice over the last 2 days, but finished them. Is this bad? So in splurging, you are not becoming the editor at all. Yeah. And started editing. I started twice over the last 2 days, but finished them. Is this bad? So, yeah, you're not like in splurging. You're not. I mean, I want to say it's bad, but you're not following the instructions if you're editing while splurging. So you're not splurging, in other words. Okay. So I mean, I can't say it's bad because if you finished a couple of tunes, who am I to say that's bad? It's not bad. It's good. Well done. Right. So, but in terms of like the actual approach that I'm talking about here, yeah, which is splurging, you're not splurging if you're editing. So, it depends whether you want to do what I'm asking you to do or not. If you do, then you would follow the instructions. You wouldn't be editing at this stage. If you don't, then keep doing what you're doing. If you're finishing music, then hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Anyway, I'm going to make a bit more of this. Yeah, I mean, in the I very, very clearly state in the content that you don't edit. So it's interesting that you wouldn't have known that already. Yeah, it's like there must be a way that you're interacting with what you're reading or what you're watching or how you're thinking about what you're doing. That probably wants to you want to have a look at that, because it couldn't be more clear that you don't edit when splurging. I mean, I really don't think it could. It's the whole thing. So it's interesting that you would have that question. Zero focus on quality. Yeah. So hang on a minute. I've forgotten how to oh, there we go. No? What's going on? What is it? Hang on a minute, that's why. Sometimes I think we get very impatient, don't we? Yeah. We're so concerned about the goal that we don't focus on what we're, the process, what we're actually supposed to be doing. Yeah. And I find this can be a big problem. We just need to kind of relax and do the thing. So the reason I've turned off console 1 is for some reason it's not working at this point, so I need to sort that out. Anyway. Hang on a minute, I know what I'm doing wrong. Hang on a minute. So I had a thought for a little project with this live streaming I might do after the Splurge challenge, and I wouldn't mind getting your feedback on whether you think it's a good idea or not. If you wouldn't mind, folks. Yeah, so Douglas is making a very good point. Thank you, Douglas, for helpfully pointing out. No focus on quality. All right, no need to laugh at me, mate. No focus on quality. You perfectly get the kick perfectly in place. So first of all, I don't think it is perfectly in place. And secondly, when I'm playing stuff, so this is the reason I'm doing it, Douglas. It's less about quality and it's more about when I'm on the grid, yeah, which I am, there needs to be some point of reference, yeah, which is in time, because most of the other parts I won't quantize. So you'll notice this, I didn't quantize, yeah, at all. And I don't really quantize a lot of my other stuff. I'm trying to quantize less, yeah. So in that context, what I find, particularly with the DFAM, because it's on the grid, it's literally on the grid, because it's a sequenced thing, yeah. It's playing. It's a robot playing it. That thing needs to be on, otherwise it kind of creates all sorts of further issues which stop me from being as free as I want to be. So the reason I make sure that that's on is for that reason. It's not really a quality reason, it's actually so that I can focus on quality less for future parts. So yeah, I know it might look like I'm focusing on quality there, and I am in a sense, but possibly I'm focusing on altering something so that I can focus on quality less. Does that make sense? I do know about the Command R key, yes. I just often will forget to use it. Anyway, so all right. Johnny, hey Mike, would just like to say I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. It's extremely helpful. No worries at all. I really appreciate you being there. Tell your compadres about it. Give me a like. Share it. Yeah. that would be of huge value to me. If you're finding this valuable, it would be absolutely massive for me if you were to tell people about it. Oh yeah, and I was going to ask you about this idea that I had. How do I approach time? So dazed and confused. That's okay, Douglas. I know you meant it in the nicest possible way. It's absolutely fine. So dazed, confused. How do you approach time management? Your daily schedule must be crazy. How do you manage that in your day-to-day life? Okay, it's a good question. Wait a minute. So, Matthew, thank you, a legend. I'd hardly say that. I think there are people who are legends. I'm not one of them. So, how do I approach time management? And yes, I do have a lot of things in my day. So, the first thing that I do to approach time management is I don't. So, I don't think of it as managing time. And I know this is a word, it's just words, yeah, but if you have been coached by me, I'm sure Tony, if he's still watching, who's one of my masterminders, will agree with this, is that I do look at and think about what the words that we use to describe our experience a lot. It's a really big, well, it's actually a very small lever that you can pull, which gets a very big result. Yeah. So, for instance, I was talking to Sealander earlier about the word should. Yeah. It's a very, very unhelpful way of kind of thinking about what should I do. It's a really unhelpful way. If you just change it to could or want, you actually get a much better answer from your mind, the universe, and everything. Okay. Similarly, if I was to think about, I mean, even just the thought of me managing my time, I get tight and I go, oh no, I've got so many things to do. What am I going to do? Oh no. And what does that mean? That means, because all this is in the mind, yeah? Because words, they describe our experience. But you know what else they do? They create our experience. Yeah. So if I think about managing time, and I mean, even thought of it, just go, oh no, I've got so many things to do. How am I going to manage this? Yeah. I get kind of a uncomfortable, panicky feeling. My focus narrows, and often what that will do is it will send me off on a distraction, doing something else that I'm not supposed to be doing. Yeah. So don't think about managing time. What I think about is, what is my priority? Yeah, because time, the reason you can't manage time is that time just, I mean, if you're talking in reality terms, then time doesn't actually exist, but as we think it does anyway. But in our experience, time just marches on no matter what we do. Yep. So in that context, we can't manage it. Yeah. All we can manage is what we do. Yeah. And how do we do that? By actually thinking, what is my priority in any given moment? And you can only have one. You can't have multiple priorities in any given moment. You can have one priority. So my priority right now is to answer your question. Dazed and confused, yeah? Which is how to approach my kind of daily schedule, yeah? But then my priority when I finish this live stream will be something else. So what I tend to do at the start of every day, although I haven't done it yet because I was meditating instead, yeah, but what I tend to do is I write down all of the things. I just do a brain dump onto a piece of paper. Actually, I do it onto a Remarkable pad, but anyway, a piece of paper, everything that I can think of that I think I need to do in that day. Okay, just brain dump it down. And then the next thing that I do is I look at that list. I pick the highest priority thing, the highest impact thing, yeah, that I need to do, and I write that on a to-do list of 1. Okay, and I do not. So, and then I cross that off my brain dump list, yeah, and I even write the time that I wrote the to-do list of 1 down, yeah, and I focus on doing that, and until I've done that, I don't do anything else. Yeah, so I'm just focusing on that one highest impact action. Now, this is actually one of the processes that I teach in my Mission Make Music Your Life program. It's called highest impact actions. Yeah. So then I do that, and then I cross that off the list. And when I finished it, cross it off the to-do list of 1, and then I look down the brain dump and I go, okay, what's the next highest impact action? Okay, it's that. Cross that off the list, and then create another to-do list of 1. I know it seems a little bit kind of contrived, but it's how. I mean, I was diagnosed with quite severe adult ADHD last year. And it explains a lot of the challenges that I've had. But this process is even for somebody who has extreme difficulty focusing on certain things, this is what I created over years, because I couldn't do like all the complicated to-do lists and everything. They just completely overwhelmed me, and I got totally distracted. Yeah, when you've got 5,000 things to do, yeah. So I had to create a to-do list of 1 and just focus on that until it was done. And what I find is that by doing that, you're naturally constantly reviewing what the highest priority thing is to do at any given moment. The other thing I do in terms of schedule is that I say no to most things. Yeah, there's an enormous amount I don't do. I don't ever do. Yeah, so I don't use social media apart from what I'm doing here. Yeah, I mean, I advertise on social media, but that's not social media. I don't do it myself. Yeah, I'm not saying that that's what you need to do, but that's just something I've said no to. There's a lot of other things I don't do. So, for instance, this year I gave up alcohol. Yeah, which is giving me more time. There are certain things that I would love to be able to do, but I've just said no to. I'm not going to do that. Like I wanted to anyone who's done my How to Focus course will see me talking about the I wish I had to start surfing. Yeah, I said no to that because I'm in Australia. I said no to that because I knew what it meant for our time. So it's saying no to a lot of things is really key. But how you know what to say no to is by constantly focusing on whatever your highest priority, well, not your highest priority, your single priority is in any given moment. So Douglas, I was telling a friend of mine that he should do this course as well. I found it odd that he said he would find it too stressful. Well, I mean, it's interesting. How would he know that he would find it too stressful when he's not tried it? But do you know what? You can't. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. So don't worry, Doug. Don't try and convince people. Just tell people about it. That's all. You don't need to convince other people to do it. I know you're doing it out of love. I get that, and I totally get it. But it's like people will come when they're ready. Just tell people about it. Just share it. Just explain how it's helping you. Yeah, and they'll come to their own. Everyone has their own path, and